guys, it's Lotus and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to continue on with our Erha read-along. So previously, Chuan-ning and Moran got swept up in this ghost bride marriage ceremony. So let's see what happens to them next. Okay, let's start the music. Chapter 14. This venerable one gets married. Ooh. Chuan-ning could still see with the thin red veil hanging before his eyes, but the view was somewhat hazy. Face thus obscured, his expression was composed as he let the ghost attendant lead him to the reception pavilion. When he looked up at the person standing there through the haze of red, though, the temperature around Chuan-ning instantly dropped by several degrees. Moran was also stunned. No, but shouldn't it have been Shumei? A veil covered the face of the bride, standing before him and attired in splendid red. He couldn't see the face behind the veil too clearly, but no matter how he looked at it, it was definitely Chuan-ning's handsome but icy face, currently glaring at him with an air of displeasure and full killing intent. Moran. He was stupefied at first, and then his expression began to grow increasingly complicated. All kinds of emotions flashed across his face before finally settling into a strange kind of silence as he stood face to face with Chuan-ning, both of them staring uneasily at each other. It was then that the golden boy and jade maiden behind them giggled and clapped, and then started to sing. Water of the White Emperor, waves sparkling and luminous, spirit amant birds greet, bearing blossoms between their beaks. Within this coffin two shall join, within this sanctuary two shall lie, intent in life, revealed in death. Henceforth two shall pass beneath the heavens, henceforth in death lone souls shall never part. But beneath the ghastly verse was an undercurrent of sadness and regret. If only he could speak, Moran just wanted to say one thing. Ugh. But he couldn't speak. There was a pair of paper dolls before the altar, one male, one female. They had no faces, but were lavishly and luxuriously dressed, probably to represent the parents of the ghost couples. The ceremony official began to chant in a sonorous bellow. The amorous new bride shies from the words, glances tender from beneath lowered lashes, red silk shrouds a delicate smile, may the husband please lift the veil. Moran had originally been completely unwilling, but hearing these words, he nearly lost his mind, trying to hold back his laughter. Haha, the amorous new bride shies from words, ha ha ha! Chuan-ning's face was ashen as he tried to suppress his anger, closing his eyes as if that could shut off his hearing, too. The ghost attendant giggled and handed Moran a folding fan. The words for fan and virtuous were pronounced the same, to indicate that this marriage was predestined by fate. Groom, please lift the veil. Moran stifled his laughter and went along with it, using the fan to lift the silken veil hanging before Chuan-ning's eyes. Even his eyelashes quivered with suppressed laughter as he peeked at the sturdy expression on Chuan-ning's face. Seeming to have sensed his mocking gaze, Chuan-ning tried to endure it for a while, but ultimately failed. Fire and lightning danced in his eyes as they snapped open with a murderous aura. But paired with the red veil clinging to his hair and the scarlet garment adorning his body, although he looked no less fierce, the slight hint of red at the corners of his eyes from the anger and grievance unexpectedly painted quite a uniquely enticing picture. Looking at eyes like this, Moran startled involuntarily, smile freezing on his face. The Shizun before him suddenly looked just like he had at a certain moment in the past life. The two overlapped in his vision, and he suddenly couldn't tell where he was, or when he was. It was only for an instant, but it was enough to drench Moran in a cold sweat. He had once committed 3 ruthless acts to Chuan-ning. First, murder. He had used the killing technique on Chuan-ning. Second, humiliation. He had forced Chuan-ning to sate his carnal desires. Third. The third had been the most gratifying thing he'd done in his previous life, but it had also been his greatest regret in the end. Of course, the Emperor of the human world would never admit to regretting any of his actions, but he never did manage to escape the torment deep in his heart. Damn, why did he have to remember that insane part? Why did he remember the Chuan-ning from those days? Moran shook his head and bit his lips. arduously trying to erase the face of the Chuan-ning in his memories to look over the person before him, now with fresh eyes. Chuan-ning was still glaring at him with an "I'm going to kill you" kind of gaze. Moran didn't want to provoke this difficult person further, so he could only smile apologetically with a helpless expression. The ceremony official spoke. Groom and bride, perform the Woguan rite. The Woguan rite dictated that the newlyweds must first clean themselves individually and then wash the other's hands afterwards. The ghost attendant brought out a porcelain pot filled with clear water, lifting it in invitation for the two to wash their hands. The poured water flowed into a basin underneath. Chuan-ning's face was full of loathing. Chuan-ning's face was full of loathing, having to wash himself and then the other. Moran was absent-minded and silently washed Chuan-ning's hands without making a fuss. But Chuan-ning was ill-tempered and unceremoniously poured the entire pot on Moran, drenching half his sleeve. Oh, Shizun is being really petty right now. Moran stared at his drenched sleeve for a while. Who knew where his mind had wandered to? But he was so preoccupied that his face hardly even showed a reaction, only a faint light that drifted across the depths of his ink-black eyes. His heart beat wildly as he thought. Chuan-ning hadn't changed. He'd never changed. His every action, every thought, last life and this, all of it was exactly the same, not the slightest bit different. He raised his head slowly, and for an instant, it felt as if he was back at Shisheng Peak, standing before Wushan Palace as Chuan-ning walked toward him on a long stretch of stairs. In the next moment, he would kneel before Moran. That proud head would touch the ground. That upright spine would bend, and Chuan-ning would prostrate before Moran's feet for a long time. Woguan rite complete. The ghost attendant's abrupt chant roused Moran from his memories. Suddenly coming to, his eyes met with Chuan-ning's, whose pitch-black pupils flashed with a cold light like the reflection of a sword, looking quite terrifying. Moran, ... The past life was the past life. As for something like making Chuan-ning kneel before him, he would have to make do with just thinking about it in this life. The cost of making it happen was truly too great. After the Woguan rite was the Tong Lao rite, and then the He-jin rite. The ghost attendant chanted slowly, "Husband and wife share a cup of wine, henceforth together until the end of the world." Wine cups were exchanged in the He-jin rite, and after that was the ritual bowing to heaven and earth. Chuan-ning's phoenix eyes narrowed dangerously. He looked like he was really about to lose it. He was so angry. When this was all over, Moran wouldn't be surprised if he chopped the ghost mistress of ceremonies into mud at the very least. But he really couldn't look too closely at Chuan-ning when he was like this. Even just one extra glance and he risked falling back into those chaotic, filthy memories, unable to free himself. First bow, to heaven and earth. Moran thought that even if they were playing along with Chuan-ning's proud temperament, there was no way he would kneel. But unexpectedly, in order to finish what he started, Chuan-ning closed his eyes, brows twitching, and actually knelt down. Together, the two touched their brows to the ground. Second bow, to parents. Fine then, kneeling for the faceless paper dolls. Could those even be called one's parents? Third bow, husband and wife to each other. Chuan-ning's thick eyelashes were lowered as he turned and knelt directly and swiftly without so much as sparing Moran a single glance, but his teeth were tightly clenched. Who would have known that the two had such poor coordination and had knelt a bit too close? As they bowed, their heads knocked together with a thud. Oh, how embarrassing. Chuan-ning sucked in a breath from the pain, holding his forehead and raising teary eyes to glare vengefully at Mo Wei-yu, who was also rubbing his forehead. Moran could only mouth soundlessly, "Sorry." Chuan-ning didn't speak, face gloomy, and rolled his eyes. After that was the Jie-fa rite, with the ceremony official chanting, "Courting here to become husband and wife, conjugal love never to be doubted." The ghost attendant offered a pair of golden scissors, and Moran couldn't help but flinch, worried that Chuan-ning might just stab him to death in his displeasure. The thought indeed seemed to have passed through Chuan-ning's mind, but in the end, they only cut a lock of hair from each other and placed them into a brocade pouch presented by the Golden Boy and Jade Maiden, to be kept by the bride, Chuan-ning. Moran really wanted to ask, I know you're pissed, but you wouldn't use my hair to curse me or make a voodoo doll or something, right? The ceremony official chanted, ceremony complete. They both sighed in relief and stood up, but unexpectedly, the ceremony official continued. The auspicious hour has arrived. Enter the bridal chamber. What the hell? Moran froze instantly and nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. What kind of joke was this? If he dared to consummate with Chuaning, this wedding really would become a effing ghost wedding. Sure, the saying went that if one should die beneath the peony flower, one would still be charming as a ghost, but in this lifetime he wanted... No, wait. In both lifetimes he wanted the virtuous Shimei, not this cold-blooded demon Chuaning who would tie up anyone who coveted him and toss them into a mud pond. Was it too late to flee the marriage? Author's notes. Oh, about the wedding verses. Originally, I planned to search for ones from traditional customs, but I couldn't find anything in depth. Also, ghost weddings are not performed the same way as normal weddings. Therefore, the lyrics must be different as well. Critics, please don't nitpick too much at it. Also, a few details have been deliberately added to the lyrics. Once the entire story is updated, those of you who are interested can come back here and revisit. You will realize these wedding verses are not completely gibberish. There's a deeper meaning. Runs away. Look, bridal chamber time. I don't have to live stream eating turd. Oh, Meatbun the author. Okay, so that was the end of chapter 13, right? Wait, was it? What chapter was that? That was the end of chapter 14, sorry. That was the end of chapter 14. And so Chuaning and Moran actually went through with the wedding ceremony, and so now they have to consummate their marriage in the bridal chamber. Let's follow them to the bridal chamber and see what happens. Chapter 15. This venerable one's first time seeking this kind of unveiling of the wedding night. Of course, something like fleeing the wedding was just wishful thinking. Shumei was still here, so he couldn't just leave no matter what. This damned ghost mistress of ceremonies, though, wasn't it a little too effing diligent? Moran was pale-faced from both anger and the effort it took to restrain himself. He grumbled to himself, isn't it enough to just oversee the wedding rites? How is the wedding night any of your effing business? Besides, they were all corpses here. Rigor mortis, how the F would the wedding night even work? Good question, Moran. As for what Chuaning's face looked like right now, Moran was too scared to even look, too busy playing dumb with his eyes glued to the carpet. He really wanted to grab that ghost mistress of ceremonies, wherever it might be hiding, and roar in his face, F you son of a bee! You show me how it's done then. The Golden Boy and Jade Maiden crowded around them, shoving them toward the back of the hall. A coffin lay there, painted a bright scarlet. It was humongous, twice the size of normal coffins, and looked exactly like the one they dug up before. Chuaning murmured something under his breath in understanding. Moran also figured it out soon after, and let out a huge sigh of relief. Of course dead people couldn't have an actual wedding night. This so-called wedding night probably just meant being sealed into the same coffin for joint interment, to be together in death. The Golden Boy and Jade Maiden confirmed their suspicions. The bride, please enter the bridal chamber first. Chuaning straightened out his wide sleeves and lay inside with a frosty expression. Next, the groom, please enter the bridal chamber. Moran grabbed the edge of the coffin and paused, blinking. Chuaning had already occupied more than half the space inside. The coffin might be spacious, but it was still a bit of a squeeze for two whole men. He climbed inside and inevitably lay down on top of Chuaning's spread-out clothing, drawing an irate glare from the other man. The Golden Boy and Jade Maiden circled the coffin and began to sing again, the same eerie yet sorrowful elegy as before. Water of the White Emperor, waves sparkling and luminous. Spirit Amat birds greet, bearing blossoms between their beaks. Within this coffin, two shall join. Within the sanctuary, two shall lie. Intent in life, revealed in death. Henceforth, two shall pass beneath the heavens. Henceforth in death, lone souls shall never part. Song finished, the children stood one to the left and one to the right, and slowly pushed the lid of the coffin into place. A dull rumble, and they were surrounded by complete darkness. Chuaning and Moran were sealed inside the coffin. The coffin was thick enough that they could speak quietly without being heard from the outside. Chuaning raised his hand and set a soundproofing barrier to ensure that they definitely wouldn't be heard. Having done all that, the first thing he said was, "Move over, you're on my arm." Moran, aren't there matters more pressing than "you're on my arm" that should be discussed right now? Despite the internal complaint, Moran still scooted over. "Move over more, there's no room for my legs." More scooting. "Move more, you're right next to my face." Moran whined, aggrieved. "Shizun, I'm up against the side already. What else do you want?" Chuaning finally humped and went silent. Moran was cramped into the corner for a while before the coffin suddenly shook, lifted by people on the outside who started slowly moving in some unknown direction, the coffin rocking with their every step. Moran strained to listen to the sounds from the outside as he seethed, thinking about how Shunmei was probably trapped in a coffin with Chen Yao right now, but there was nothing he could do about it. Chuanning's barrier was powerful, preventing sounds from the inside from getting out while allowing sounds from the outside to pass through. The sounds of firecrackers and schwams could be heard through the wall of the coffin. Moran asked, "This gaggle of ghosts and demons sure are bored. Just where are they taking these coffins?" It was too dark inside the coffin to see the other person's face, so he could only hear Chuanning's voice. "It's the same as Butterfly Town's tradition. The destination should be the temple outside town." Moran nodded and concentrated on listening for a while. "Shizun, there seems to be more and more footsteps outside." "Ghosts travel at night. All of the coffins will be carried over together. If my guess is right, the ghost mistress of ceremonies will appear in its true form at the temple to draw merits from the newlywed couples." Moran asked, "Won't people notice hundreds of coffins being carried through town?" "They will not," Chuaning answered. "The coffins are carried by ghost golden boys and jade maidens. Ordinary people cannot see objects carried by ghosts." Moran wondered, How are you so sure about that?" Chuaning said, "I used Tianwen to interrogate a ghost golden boy in the dressing room earlier." They were silent for a while before he questioned, "What was the deal with that red coffin on the mountain then? The one with Chen Gongzi in it? And why do people keep dying in the Chen family?" Chuaning, "Not sure." Moran was slightly surprised. "The golden boy didn't tell you?" Chuaning, "The ghost golden boy said it also did not know." It was quiet again for a bit. Then Chuaning spoke, "But I think that family is hiding something from us." "Why do you say that?" "Remember, although the thing enshrined in that temple exudes evil energy, it is still a being that is cultivated into a deity and depends on the people's worship to grow stronger." Moran had never paid attention to Chuaning's lessons in his previous life, and so had ended up not having a lot of the basic general knowledge needed to handle certain matters later on. He thought that perhaps he should actually be modest and seek some instruction in this reborn life. So he asked, "What's so significant about deities?" "What were you doing during last month's lesson on the differences between deities, ghosts, gods, and demons?" Moran thought to himself, "This venerable one was reborn. Of course this venerable one wouldn't remember what he was doing during some lesson from more than 10 years ago. But he'd probably been either picking at his feet under the table, reading Bedroom Adventures of 9 Dragons and a Phoenix, oogling Shunmei while lost in thought, or staring at Chuanning's neck while secretly gesturing the various ways of cutting that person's head off." Chuaning reprimanded him with, "Copy Record of Knowledge from the 6 Kingdoms, 10 times as punishment when we return." Oh. All those times he'd skipped class had come back to bite him in the ass. Deities differ from gods. Gods can act as they please, but deities cannot meddle in mortal affairs without being beseeched to do so. Moran felt a shiver run down his spine, which means that it killed the members of the Chen family at the behest of a person? Chuaning's voice sounded ominous in the darkness. The beseecher may not necessarily be a living person. Moran opened his mouth to ask more questions, but before he could, the coffin shook abruptly and tilted to the left, perhaps because the golden boy and jade maiden carrying the coffin came upon a hill or some such. With the sudden jolt, the slippery inside, and the complete lack of anything to grab onto, Moran tumbled over and smacked firmly into Shizun's chest. Moran put a hand over his aching nose and lifted his head, disoriented, but a faint wisp of the fragrance of high tong flowers floated to his nose. The scent was as light as the fog at dawn, with a hint of nighttime chill. Such scents ordinarily lulled people into a haze, but this one was clean and refreshing, clearing the head instead. Moran froze, then immediately became hard. No, Moran, bad dog! This is not the appropriate time right now. He couldn't be any more familiar with this fragrance. It was Chuaning's scent, but to Moran, this scent had always been intertwined with desire. All of a sudden, a certain deep-seated depravity, like a lightning-stricken forest fire, shot directly into his head. Author's notes. Leader of the Old Age Single Men's Foundation, #1 boss Ghost Mistress of Ceremonies, soon will be online. Mistress of Ceremonies has a special bridal chambers method. Lock this pair of dogs in a coffin. Boom. The only way to leave is to confess to each other. Otherwise, you can't come out. So that's the end of chapter 15. So Moran and Shizun got stuck inside a coffin, and they're being transported somewhere, but they can't really see what's going on from the outside. And Moran, who is thinking about his past life, got a whiff of Chuaning's fragrance and now has a little problem down below, you know? He's a little excited, which is really not appropriate. He really should not be smelling up his Shizun while they're stuck in close, cramped quarters. Oh no, how is Shizun gonna punish him later if he notices? That's gonna be so embarrassing. Anyway, that's the end of today's read-along. I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully we meet the Ghost Mistress of Ceremonies in the next chapter. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.